So we got some news to talk about today for Baldur's Gate 3 as Sven Vinca, the owner and creative director of Larian Studios, did a live interview on Twitch with the Dropped Frames podcast. Now I will leave a link below to the YouTube channel itmejp where these Dropped Frames episodes upload to, and I'll also leave links to the 3 hosts' Twitch channels. Many of you are probably quite familiar with CoCarnage, who is one of those 3. We actually got some special CoCarnage news pertaining to BG3 later in this video, so make sure to stick around. So some great questions were asked to Sven pertaining to BG3. Now 1 or 2 of these are a little bit in that spoiler territory, so I'm going to save those for the end of the video, and I'll give you a spoiler warning beforehand. Do note that there's nothing really visually special about this news video. All you need is your ears here, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. First news of the day is that we learned that Baldur's Gate 3 has basically gone gold, even though that term isn't really a thing anymore in the industry as physical copies of the game have dwindled away. But what that means in this sense is that Baldur's Gate 3's final build has been locked in. Now, this doesn't mean that they won't continue to fix bugs, etc., but yeah, the game is basically ready to launch, and going gold is a big deal for studios. And that brings us into the next topic, which is what time will this game release? So we're already well aware that the PC release date is on August 3rd, and from what Sven told us, the game should become available on Steam probably at 1 p.m. Eastern. But do note that that time could change. And also, prepare yourself for the possibility of Steam crashing when the game launches. This did happen back in 2020 with the launch of Early Access, and it can and probably will happen again. Now, as for being able to preload the game, Sven does not know. He did not have an answer for us, but he did say that installing Early Access or keeping it in your library probably won't help much in this department, as the full version of the game is very different in terms of the files. As for the release times on the GOG store, which I am an affiliate of and a big supporter of, I'm not entirely sure, but I am sure that GOG wants it out as early as possible so people don't all flock to Steam. But if I do get a time for that, I'll let you know in a future video. Now, in terms of DLCs for Baldur's Gate 3, or just more content in general for the game, Sven said that the team is still fully focused on the release of this game and they've not started anything. From the way it sounded listening to Sven talk, as of right now, I wouldn't count on DLCs. Larian may just move on to their next project, but I don't know for sure. Now, with that said, the replayability of this game may go down in history. Very few people, if any, are going to have exactly the same playthrough, even if you play like a similar alignment style, and that's just how this game is designed. It's impossible to experience every single thing that the game offers in one run. There's just too many permutations, too much reactivity to what the player does. Your race and class choice affect the world around you, etc. This game is a highly systematic game where doing one thing or choosing to talk to one NPC versus another can change the way that events play out. Next up pertains to the Steam Deck. So we now know that Baldur's Gate 3 is very close to being verified on the Steam Deck, but Sven said that he can't guarantee that it will be on launch day, but it's still possible. Now, with that said, even if it's not ready on launch day, it should not be that long after. As for Mac users, and also those of you who are eagerly awaiting an Xbox announcement, there was no questions asked in this regard, so we're still waiting for an update. Now let me give you a string of bad news. Not really bad news, but some of you were hoping the answers to these questions to be yes. So first up is the highly requested Dungeon Master mode, or like a DM toolkit for players to create their own custom campaigns in Baldur's Gate 3. Well, it doesn't look like BG3 will be getting a DM mode. As exciting as that would be, according to Sven, creating that is a huge task, and we already know how huge of a task BG3 alone is. Now, as much as I would love a DM mode, totally understand why Larian doesn't seem to want to commit to that right now. It would be like creating another game. Next up, I can finally confirm that rolling for stats will not be in the game. Well, at least not on launch. I know I told everyone on my channel that I didn't see the option when I got to play the full version of the game, but now we know for sure that it will not be in the game. Now, with that said, let me sprinkle in some positive news here. Modding support will be coming to this game after launch. Larian wants to support the modding community, which is fantastic news. So yeah, that's going to be pretty fun checking out some of those mods, and I'll definitely do a few mod videos and streams in the future. And of course, those of you who want to roll for stats, modders will certainly be adding that in. Next, I'll break the news that the dodge action and the ready action will not be shipping with Baldur's Gate 3. Sven says that he's excited for people to mod it in, though, and him and the team will see how that goes. They'll keep an eye on that. So perhaps it will become an official thing in BG3 at some point, but that would be at a later date. Definitely not on launch. And the last piece of disappointing news before we get into some more positives is that although the dialogue system has gone through a lot of upgrades and improvements, the current system where the player or character who initiates dialogue is the one who also takes full control of that dialogue. They have to. They're the ones that have to drive the dialogue forward, as you can't switch to another party member. Well, the full version of Baldur's Gate 3 is still going to be like that. If you're playing multiplayer, however, the players who did not initiate dialogue can weigh in on what they want the talking player to say. Also note that even though only one player can do the talking in the roles, other party members can contribute with, spells or cantrips such as guidance to aid the talking character in their skill checks, etc. Basically, Sven's reasonings for this was that the game's insane amount of permutations made that a monumental task. And I don't know the insides and outs of game development. I know this is a feature that a lot of us wanted, but I think we can all agree that what Larian is giving us with this project is above and beyond what pretty much any other company out there has done with RPGs. So I tend to lean to want to trust him on that, and that they didn't just scrap it because they're lazy or whatever. So moving on, respecking companions and origin characters' classes has now been confirmed to be a thing in this game by Sven himself. We already knew that we could respec our own character by talking to a certain NPC and giving him some gold. Well, now we know for sure that this will also be able to be done with the origin and companion characters. Now keep in mind, these origin and companion characters, story-wise and dialogue-wise, will still be the class that is associated with their past and their history. So, for example, if you were to change Helson into a paladin, well, he's still going to be referred to and treated as a druid. So you can change their classes and subclasses, but you'll be doing so knowing that it might not fully make sense. Larian's giving us the agency to make this choice. Sven actually said that you can respec everything, which also made me wonder about the appearance of the origin characters. But since he didn't say that specifically, I don't know. I should also note here that Sven said that 2 of the origin characters will be locked into a subclass at the very start of the game. But when you meet the respec guy, you can of course change that. So there's still a few questions regarding this topic, but the main news here is that you can at the very least change their classes and subclasses if you want to at the respec guy that you'll eventually meet earlier on in the game. Since we're on the class topic in a sense, one common question has been, how will dialogue react to us if we choose to multi-class? So those of you who have played early access would know that not only your racial choice affects the story and how things may play out and gives you special dialogue options, but your class choice does as well. Well, we now know that if you multi-class and you're in dialogue that gives you class-specific responses, such as, a monk response, all of the classes that you are going to show up as an option that you can choose to respond with. And the only thing that I think about the only thing that I thought about when Sven said this was, what if we multi-class 12 times? I wonder how that's going to work. Now, touching back on your racial choice, Sven did say that the less common races to the surface world of the Sword Coast, such as the Githyanki, Dragonborn, Drow, etc., they will get these more unique dialogues and reactivity to the world around them when compared to playing as, a human, dwarf, or halfling. So all races will have their own unique effect on the world, but when you're comparing, a human and a dwarf and an elf and those races walking up to the gate of Baldur's Gate, well, it's going to be different than if you play as a Githyanki or a Drow or, a Dragonborn, these less common races. They're going to offer these more unique experiences from the other races. Now let's talk about the camp scenes in the game. So without getting into spoilers, your party's camp does play a big role in the game, and it's where a lot of story dialogue scenes take place with your companions. So some players were wondering if talking to certain companions may then lock you out of getting a few extended scenes from other companions, as this is how it seems to work in early access. Now Sven was straight up with this and basically said, yes, the sequence that you choose to engage with NPCs can and will at times affect the content that comes after. For example, if you have a deep conversation with Astarion and Shadowheart's in your camp, when you go to her after, she may be acting a little bit suspicious of you, and you may not get the same dialogue as if you were to redo the entire scene and talk to her first before you talk to Astarion. Like I said earlier, this is a highly systematic game where everything that you do can have a rippling effect on the game. You actually cannot complete and see everything in one run, and Sven actually said that you got to be careful as to what you consider as missed content, because it's not meant to be viewed as missed content. More so, it's the result of the world changing around you. You can't experience everything in one run. It's just not possible, and the game is not designed or meant to be that way. Now, personally, I love this. It feels like a living, breathing world, and a lot of this does make sense, but completionists, of course, may find this a bit frustrating. Now, with that said, anything that is truly important and vital to the story, you cannot miss. There are systems in place to ensure that you don't miss those scenes. Now, also, I should note that Sven did say that the camp system has been upgraded significantly. All right, now we're getting a bit more into the spoiler territory. So this is your spoiler warning. And if you're heading out, thank you so much for watching. The first topic is a returning character from the BG games, so it may or may not feel like a spoiler to some of you. And this character reveal is... Happy birthday! Nuber. So Nuber is returning to the Baldur's Gate franchise. Actually, it's a descendant of Nuber called Naber. And this character is actually voice acted by Carnage himself. So for those of you who are not familiar with the original games, Nuber is an NPC that shows up in your game, and he is one of the most annoying NPCs in the history of NPCs. And basically, he's put in the game as a test, or put in the game to test a player's patience. And I know that I myself end up killing him every time I see him. So really cool and fun, and maybe annoying shout back to the original games by including a descendant of Nuber. I know I, for one, can't wait to talk to him and see how his family lineage is doing. Now, at the end of the video, I'll let the short video play of the introduction to Nuber's character, as I don't see it uploaded on the Larian channel just yet. But moving on from Nuber, let's now talk about Minsc. So the question that was asked is, will we be able to speak to Boo with the Speak with Animals spell, or if we end up wild shaping as a druid? Sven's answer to this was that the mystery of Boo is the mystery of Boo. But then he also quickly said that he doesn't want to hype this up too much, which then made me wonder if Boo will even be in the game? I don't know what Sven was getting at here. We didn't get an answer to that question, but I am kind of wondering if Boo will be missing, and this might be part of the lore explanation as to why Minsc may be a lower level character. I really don't know, though. Boo is a big part of Minsc's character, so I doubt that Larian would leave Boo completely out, and if they do, though, it must be heavily tied to Minsc's story or quest. And don't forget that that little cinematic trailer that we saw of Minsc in the past when he was petrified also showed Boo. Granted, that is in the past, but Larian still showed us Boo, so... Sven also did confirm to us that Minsc does have a tadpole in his brain. I'm not sure if that was information that was already out there, or if Sven accidentally revealed that, but either way, now we know, and that might be a spoiler for some of you, which is why we're in the spoiler section. So, interesting. Minsc is affected, and it makes me wonder if Jaheira is as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm going to let the Nuber video play out, and I'll catch you guys on the next one, which will probably be pretty soon.
There's a character who's written to be intentionally incredibly annoying, and people who've played the original games will likely recognize certainly the line from which he's descended.
My name's Narber, adventurer to be, soon to be the best adventurer anyone's ever seen.
So the minute you meet him, he starts following you around, constantly pestering you. You can try and tell him to shut up, and he just doesn't.
Happy birthday, dear. Now why would I do that? Oh, wow, that sounds awful. I don't think I want to sound like that.
So the game gives you an incredible amount of freedom. So if in real life you met Carnage in the street, you could decide to push him in the river. In the game, if you meet Carnage in the street, you could push him in the river.
Excuse me.
But you really shouldn't push Carnage into the river in real life.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Swimmer. No drowning for me.
You can kill him and he still won't stop talking.
Why are you leaving me? I have so much